Hi, folks. Welcome to Your Quality of Life Healthy Alternatives. I'm your host, Dr. Christine Sauer, and today I'm extremely happy to be with Susan Farling. Hi, Susan.
Hello, Dr. Christine. I'm delighted to be here with you.
I'm delighted to have you. Just call me Christine. I'm fine with that. I know from you a little bit, we talked before, you have an undergraduate degree in art
I
and then
did.
were a nurse for 10 years and then became a counselor and psychotherapist for 30 years.
Yeah.
So you're still young at heart and now coach women and men in their retirement, transition, and beyond. Tell me, how did you get all those things wound up and end up where you are now?
Thank you for the question. And it feels like going back a long way to start there. I think my love of art has wound its way through my life right up until the present. And it manifests in a love of poetry and a love of metaphor and that sort of thing. But I needed to do something that felt practical. And my mother had been a nurse, and there are other nurses in the family. So I thought, well, all right, then I'll do that when I became 30. And so I had visions of traveling and being a nurse. It didn't quite work out that way. It did a bit. Um, so in nursing, what I discovered that I enjoyed was the moment of connection with the client, and all the hustle bustle and all the tasks that needed to be done seemed to me to just to to interfere with the kind of connection I was interested in. And so I became fascinated as well with the body mind um, interaction, and also with the wisdom and self-awareness of the clients I was working with. Because as a nurse, my job was to tell people what to do and to follow doctors' instructions. But it quickly became clear to me that people had really strong and wisdom that came out of their own experience, that I was more interested in listening to that. And so that piece is essentially why I went back to school and got my master's in counseling, which was a very affirmative experience for me, because actually the research at that time was leading in the direction of Rogerian uh, kind of listening,
Mhm.
which suited what I was doing. And then from there, I went
For
on.
those that don't know Carl Rogers, he was the first book I read about psychotherapy when I was 16. It fell into my hands. I was in Germany in English, On Becoming a Person.
Aha,
Interpersonal psychotherapy. Wonderful.
yes, yes. And so that was kind of, as I saw it, a bit of the foundation of what I started to learn. And then from there, studied body mind psychotherapies and psychotherapy. Um, uh, I did an internship following graduating. Anyway, and then became a founding member of a very thriving counseling psychotherapy practice for 30 years, which was wonderful. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, and worked with people from 18 right into their 80s through all their different kinds of transitions. And now, as my peers are now retiring, and my clients actually are wanting to talk about their retirement, I've made a specialty and a focus of the retirement transition. And I think it's an exciting one, because um, it has all the different elements of any transition, plus the added advantage of all the years of experience and um, learning that has already taken place, and then to support people into moving into a very rich third stage of their life is very gratifying. So I feel like I'm exactly where I want to be in terms of my career. So thank you for the question.
That is so wonderful, Susan. You're such a wonderful person to do that. Let me ask you a question. Why would anybody want to retire in the first place?
Well, that is a very good question, and one that I think many people come up to. There still is the societal um, um, notion of retiring around mid 60s, and in truth, there are many people who are just have not enjoyed their work experiences are very ready to leave that particular environment. And then what they choose to do next is very much dependent on their values and you know, what it is they want to, how they want to create meaning in their life. And so some people choose to do some of the activities they've always wanted to do and have never done. Others love the idea of launching a new career, sometimes a second and third career. So some people don't want to, quotes, retire. I mean, retire has a very old a connotation of moving away from society. And I think that that is being very debunked these days. It's a different world that we live in, and it requires a great deal of flexibility, I think, from all of us.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I know many people, especially of the lower classes, that maybe don't have that much money to retire, but for them, they retire for physical reason. Maybe they were a physical laborer and
Mhm.
they were getting sick, their body is worn out, and now they are forced to retire. And what do they
Yes.
do? They flop out on the Chesterfield, watch TV. Would you call that retirement?
I would call that exhaustion. You know, I
That's a good
personally,
one.
yeah, I personally don't really like labels. You know, I fussed around with the word retirement for a while when I started to focus in on this part of this transition. And then I decided, you know, what's more important is what's actually happening, what really matters to people, and how are they going to create meaning and purpose in their lives? How are they going to find social activities that are satisfying? Where are they going to find their sense of self in this next stage and phase? And the other piece is that, you know, I do believe that it's possible to truly transform our experience, and having experienced that myself a number of times in my life. And so I think we can do that at any age and stage.
I couldn't agree more. As my motto says, it's never too late to start living your best life. And I'm so
That's right.
happy to speak with somebody that helps people just like I doing exactly that.
That's right.
Wonderful.
Good.
So tell me the story that we talked about before.
Okay. I would love to. Because this is a story I really haven't talked about publicly. I had it's about a 30-year-old experience in the past. My doctor always used to say to me, you should write a book. And so rather than writing a book, I'm going to tell you about it. So when I was in my early 40s, I developed severe adult onset asthma. And I had overextended for many, many years. And at that time had a private practice and a young daughter and husband and a very busy life. And my body just decided it was done with that. So I could not rely on my energy. What went really was my social life, because I kept forging ahead with the things that felt absolutely crucial, my parenting and working. And so colds were an absolute disaster. I was canceling right and left in terms of activities. And I started on prednisone. And I was on prednisone for 4 years. And for people who don't know about prednisone, it's a drug that has side effects other than the ones that are, it's an anti-inflammatory, but it also caused early onset cataracts, it caused bone loss, it caused weight gain. But I developed a kind of a psychological dependency on it because I felt like without it, I couldn't breathe. And I mean, I had spent nights sitting up, feeling as though I was breathing through a straw, unable to get my breath, and writing out my will. I mean, it was it was a seriously debilitating illness. And then in the middle of that, I got one of those superbugs, and so I was taken rapidly to hospital and was very near death for um, um, a number of days, and then stayed in the hospital for a week or so, a couple of weeks. But and where I got antibiotics, just all kinds of antibiotics. So when I came out, I was about as weak as a little bird in a nest, and yet I felt very determined to return to health because I had this wonderful, beautiful, creative little daughter, and she was my motivation.
How old was she at that time?
She was in her early going to school, so 4, 5, 6, 7 in those years,
Wow, yeah.
and and so what happened was. I tried just about everything. I went to acupuncture. I worked with a therapist who worked with people who had cancer. I tried everything alternative that I could think of, as well as I was using the medications I was um, being told to by traditional Western medicine. And nothing worked. And I had a professional um, person tell me, a man who works with lungs, he said, you can run around and do everything that you want. I've seen people before doing it, but your prognosis is not going to change and it's going to get worse over time. And, I actually thought that was a pretty arrogant statement. And I didn't take it on as my experience for some reason. I don't know why, but I
Yeah.
just didn't. And at the time, my husband, my now ex-husband, but my husband at the time, went to his doctor and told him what was going on with me. And that doctor had just come back from a conference and had learned about an Ayurvedic technique, protocol for asthma. And this simplified version of that was eliminate all whites and go on massive doses of intravenous vitamins. Now, I had been circling around my diet thinking, okay, it's getting clearer and clearer that what I need to do is massively change how I eat. And I was resisting that because I love food. I love to eat. I love what I was eating, and I like to drink my wine. And so I was in resistance. I did
Your
not
food
want.
was just not loving you back.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so I did. I went on this protocol I just went feet first. And I realized that a couple of things. One, I didn't like getting the intravenous vitamins. It felt invasive. So I found a high quality commercial vitamin that I could use that filled that gap. And then I realized I needed to do a detox. And I found a system. It's called the Body Smart System, Elaine Silver's. It's very old, but at the time, it was as new as I could find. And I went on it and followed it to a T. And I had, over time, a healing crisis. Which I didn't have a clue what it was, what was going on. I developed, I leaked fluid from every orifice, like my eyes leaked fluid, and my body developed, I think it was 3 or 4 kinds of pustules. And, I categorized them because they were all different. And they came out of my chest and my face and my arms. And my daughter said, mothers are not supposed to look like that, And I'd wake up in the morning and it was still there. And I didn't know what was happening because I was eating all this excellent food. I was doing food separation. I was doing all the things I was supposed to do. And here was this event that was most unwelcome happening. And my thinking was foggy. I now know I was essentially poisoning myself by doing it too quickly, but I didn't know that then. And so I went to doctors and a nutritionist, and they all said, we don't know what's going on. I got in touch with the author. She had never heard of anything like that. The one person I went to that was sort of encouraging said, keep doing what you're doing because something's happening. I don't know what it is, but something's going on. So essentially I had to go on faith because my alternative was to go back to the old way, and I was dying. So I could not do that. And so I went on faith, and I went on love for my daughter, and came out the other side. And I had not been that healthy. It took me a while to really regain my robust strength, but I truly have not been as healthy since then. I mean, I have been healthy since then. It's great. I go back whenever I sort of slip because I don't stick to that protocol. rigidly at all. But when I do find myself getting a little droopy, I'll pull back towards that and maintain my health that way. So I may not have written my book, but I've told you my story.
Thank you so much, Susan. Such an inspiration. And I hear it from my clients over and over that once they started doing the things they knew they should do and actually applied it to their life and kept it up step by step, they got better.
Yes.
And I love what you're saying. It's so true. And we have to address all areas of life like you did, not just walk around one and do everything else, because that may just be the area that you need to address.
Yes.
How did that agree with your experience later as a psychotherapist?
Well, as a psychotherapist, I mean, as a person in the world, I've also had the wonderful advantage of going for my own therapy
Yes.
and experiencing from the inside out what it is to transform. And so when I talk with my clients, and as a not just a psychotherapist, but as a coach as well now, I know that we can transform because I've experienced it. I feel it, and I feel like I'm still in that process. I think it's an ever going, ever, continuing process of growth, of transformation, of recognizing what stands in the way of really shining my light and my clients' light, and supporting people to move into that place where they feel they can expand into the self they want to be.
Do I hear that you have the word growth as a meaning of what you're doing?
Ah, growth, yes. Transformation, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I just see here, I have, and behind my computer is a wall, and I
yes,
have a big poster on there with a big word on it, growth, and then personal, work, financial, and for others. And that's
yes,
what I'm doing constantly. And I'm going
yes,
on 60. I'll be 60 next week. I'm proud of it.
yes,
And the more I get older, the happier I get.
yes. And
And
that's
I
very
always say,
interesting.
if you're not happy living the way you're living now, you will never be happy.
Hmm.
Isn't
Well,
that true?
I don't know if you've heard of the U curve of happiness, which
Oh,
is,
tell me.
it's very interesting apparently, and this has been globally studied. Um, when we by the time we're in our late teens, we start to lose our sense of personal happiness apparently, and it kind of grounds out around 40 to 50 and starts to rise again. So by the time you are in your 60s, you're back to feeling as um, much happiness and joy as you did as an adolescent or young person, and then it goes on up into your 80s, so
Yeah.
that the capacity for pleasure and enjoyment is truly expands. I have a I have theories that that's about living in the present and taking joy in the moment more
In
and
the
more as
little
our
things.
life, as we develop a frame around our life more and more. Yeah.
And appreciating the little things.
Yes,
Like our conversation right now, it is wonderful
it is.
to be in contact, even via Zoom. It's the next best to meeting in person,
That's right.
uh, to a real person and talking about issues that affect us all,
Yes.
because we are all humans.
Yes.
Some people are running away from their own life.
Yes. Mhm.
What was
Yes, I
your
think that's probably why we made a connection in the first place.
yes? What was your most memorable patient or client? Of course, no names, but just
Well, the most memorable client for me is typically the people I'm working with right now, and people who come very challenged and are willing to dig in and do the work and take on the challenges um, and be honest about where they are and what the struggles are, and honest too about their successes and their celebrations. And you know um, I truly celebrate the people, my clients who are Well, I just celebrate them all, really.
And I feel that's really a mark of great coaches because we all learn the most from our clients, don't we?
Yes.
By experiencing secondhand what they're experiencing, we are growing as people ourselves.
Oh, truly, all the time. I'm humbled by what I learned. Yes.
Yeah. And one of the most memorable moments in my life was when I was in the 6 weeks group psychotherapy program after I was in the mental health program after I tried to kill myself in 1998. And one of the ladies in that program was 83 years old. And she was very depressed and down. And she took on the challenges. She transformed her life. And at the end, she was our inspiration. And that's where I got my motto. It's never too late to start living your own life. She was 83 then, God love her. I don't think she's still alive. I don't know. That's a long time ago. Maybe she
Yeah.
is. But at least she had a good rest of her life.
Yes. Well,
And
I started to feel liberated when I turned 70, and I stopped dyeing my hair.
yes, good for you.
And yeah, and I'm mid 70s, and I really think it's a great time of life.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes.
I truly am looking forward to getting older myself. And if your listeners and our listeners get older there, and many of them, and you all will get older unless you die before that, the alternative is not good for
It's
most people.
yeah.
And it's never too late. And
Mhm.
find somebody that speaks to you, whether it's Susan or myself or another coach or psychotherapist, if you're not living your best life.
Mhm. I was just thinking as you were saying that I think one of the qualities that uh, creates resilience as we age is curiosity.
Yeah.
Curiosity and just interest in our surroundings. There is so much to be fascinated by in my perspective. I understand that is not necessarily true for everybody, but yeah, just as you were
I
talking,
like that point. And my mentor, Dr. Amen, always says, be curious, not furious.
mhm,
That is such a nice turnaround. So many
mhm.
people are upset when their expectations are not met by life. And that
Yes,
happens a lot. If instead you are curious, your attitude changes. So I totally agree with you. And life suddenly becomes a fascinating quest of search and finding.
yes, and what you just said around attitude. I mean, really, the research around the impact of attitude on our cellular health, on our emotional lives, on our physical lives, it's just we have a huge impact on our experience with the attitude, and we have choice in attitude. You know.
We have choice.
Mm-hmm,
That is an important point, and I love that you said that
mm-hmm,
because we can choose to pursue happiness, to pursue our best life.
mm-hmm,
And we can choose to accept the help if we feel that's what we need. And
mm-hmm,
it's our choice to be angry about everything that comes across us
mm-hmm.
or to accept those serenity prayer comes in what we cannot change and change those things that we can. And one of the things we can change is ourselves, our attitude, what we're eating, what we're doing. Wow, that is
Mm-hmm.
that is a good one. I love that, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks
Well,
for
I
being.
actually wrote a book, One Choice at a Time, a counselor's practical guide to well-being. And I do believe it's one choice at a time.
One choice at a
Sometimes,
time. Can they
yeah,
find that? Where can they find that? On Amazon?
it's
Or?
it's in its second edition, and so it's going to be coming out soon. But right now, it's not in print.
Okay. So in the second edition, it will be online on Amazon and all those
Yes.
booksellers, Chapters, Indigo, and wherever you want to go.
Mhm.
Awesome. And of course, on your website, which is
My website is www.susanfarling.com, and anybody who chooses to go there can download and if they're interested in the retirement transition, they can download an ebook that's called The One Big Mistake Even Bright Savvy People Make About Retirement and How to Avoid that.
That sounds interesting. And I bet it's not how to invest the money if you have it. It's not about that, right?
No, it's not at all.
It's better than that.
Yeah, it's much different.
Money does not produce happiness at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, it buys toothpaste, but it's important to recognize, I think, that it's certainly not the focus. Yeah. And
you have to have enough to have safe living quarters,
yeah.
as safe as possible in life. Life is never safe, and enough to eat for the next.
Yes.
Yeah. That I agree. But if you have more than that, it's a luxury.
Yeah. The ebook is packed with practical suggestions for how people can, in a very down-to-earth way, support themselves through the retirement transition and beyond.
And I actually looked at that and I completely agree. It's a great resource and I recommend all our listeners to download it. I put the link to your website right under your video.
Okay, thank you.
And it will be in the podcast notes and all that. So if you want it, feel free to reach out to Susan. If you can't find it on the website, reach out to me and we'll be so happy to send you to each other.
Good. Yay.
Thank you so much, Susan. It was a great conversation and maybe sometime we can even talk more.
Yes, that would be lovely. Thank you so much for the invitation, Christine. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much. And all our listeners, go below and subscribe to the podcast, the YouTube channel, and let us know what you think and what else you want to hear and see. Bye-bye.
Bye, and best wishes to all out there.